I'm Melissa Grabner. I'm a professor in the Macomb School of Business, and I'm the associate director of the Kelleher Center. And we have a treat in store tonight. We have three very special guests who have all been good friends to the entrepreneurial community in Austin, as well as to the University of Texas. And they're all three Longhorns, which is even better. I want to pay special tribute tonight to our host, Laura Kilcrease. Some of you may know her, others of you may not know what a powerful figure she's been in the entrepreneurial development of Austin. And tonight is a bit of a bittersweet event because this is the last event that Laura will be hosting for us for the Kelleher Center. Laura was our entrepreneur in residence in the last academic year, 2012 to 2013, and she launched the speaker series, which proved to be a great success. And although the entrepreneur in residence is a one-year position, we wanted to maintain the momentum and institutionalize this program, so we prevailed upon her to stay and continue hosting half of the talks this year. In addition to the great service she's performed for us, Laura has an amazing history with promoting initiatives in Austin. She was the founding director of Austin Technology Incubator. She founded Triton Ventures, her venture capital firm, and the list could go on and on. She is the embodiment of class, and we've been very lucky to have her. And I'd like to give her a round of applause, and we have a few tokens of our esteem.
Thank you. Give me a kiss, please. Thank you very much. Well, hey, I could come every week for this. This is great. Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you, Melissa. As always, we have two really accomplished and exciting entrepreneurs tonight. Let me, first of all, read their bios, their short bios, and introduce them. To my far left is Daniel Nelson. Daniel is one of the original founders of Datical, as well as the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of the company. Prior to Datical, Daniel was founder and VP of products at Furnace Software, a maker of cutting-edge applications, deployment and configuration software for large enterprises. Furnace was acquired by BMC Software in December 2009, and after the acquisition, Daniel served as BMC's Director of Product Management, focused on business automation. Daniel has spent the past 16 years in the software business and has both a BA and an MBA from the University of Texas at Austin. And in 2010, he was honored with the Rising Star Award from the Macomb School of Business. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you.
Next to Daniel, to my immediate left, is Robert Reeves. Robert is Chief Technical Officer, or CTO, an advocate for Datacal's customers and provides technical architecture leadership. Prior to co-founding Datical, Robert was a director of the Austin Technology Incubator, and at ATI he provided real-world entrepreneurial expertise to ATI member companies to aid in market validation, product development, and fundraising efforts. Robert co-founded Furnace Software in 2005. He invented and created the flagship product, Furnace Deliver, which provides middleware infrastructure management to multiple Fortune 500 companies. As CTO, he led technical evangelism, which I love, efforts and product vision.
Sales.
Thank you. And sales. That's the easy way to say it. Sales. After BMC Software acquired Furnace in 2009, Robert served as a chief architect and lead worldwide technical evangelist. I think it's really remarkable that we've got two individuals who have both built a company together and have sold one, and now are building a second company together. So I'm going to ask you both, first of all, why you two? Why, what got you guys together?
Well, this is a great story. Even a blind squirrel?
Yeah.
So Robert and I have known each other for a very long time. So we were in the same 3-year-old class together. But then I moved away, and we didn't get reconnected until middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in my room one day going through my stuff, because that's Robert. And
research.
Right. He found this picture of the 3-year-old class. He's like, oh, I got that picture. And we're looking at it, and I was like, well, that's me. He's like, well, that's me, and we're standing right next to each other. Now, the funny thing is at the time, I really hated him. And it wasn't until really high school that we became friends. But then best friends in high school, then college roommates, and then eventually when the internet revolution hit back in the early 90s, or actually mid-90s, I was out in San Francisco, out in Palo Alto, and I called Robert, and it's like, you got to get involved in this stuff. They'll hire anybody.
They're paying how much?
Right.
Holy crap, I got to do this stuff.
And a lot of you may not remember this, and some of you may, but in 1995, if you could spell TCP/IP, like you could get a job doing like anything that you wanted in the industry, which is really perfect for us because we needed low barriers to entry.
Very low.
And then, back in the day, and we've really kind of expanded upon this in terms of our whole career, we've made a career out of being experts in things that there's really not a lot to know about. And we found that that's really worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
So don't we? You're very understated. You're very coy, but I will give you much more credit than that, having built Furnace and sold it really very, very quickly to BMC, a $2 billion software company.
Oh, yeah.
And they came after you guys in a
Right.
very short period of time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you started Furnace somewhere around
November, it was, so Furnace started originally when I was in Rob Adams' class.
Right.
In my MBA, in my MBA. So New Venture Creation is Rob's first year, taking over for Gary Cadenhead, which were certainly big shoes to fill. And I had to write a business plan for the class. And so I was talking to Robert about it, and Robert had this idea for the product. And I said, like every good prospective MBA, I told him exactly why it was a terrible idea, and it never worked. And he said, well, what's your idea? And I said, well, I've got this idea for a donkey milk dairy.
Donkey milk dairy.
Well, I mean, no, and I still want to do this. I was going to call it Sweet Ass Dairy, and we were going to make a line of donkey milk products. And he's like, really? My idea is the one that's not going to work? So I was like, so we thought about it some more, and I did some market validation. We talked to a lot of people, and it turned out there was a real need there. There was a real pain there. And so Robert and I kind of collaborated on the business plan, turned it into Rob's class, and then 4 years and 3 weeks after we turned it in, we sold the company to BMC.
4 years. But, and I'm going to come back to several topics, but so started doing your MBA, I think, with evening MBA?
Yes, that's
So you
correct.
work full-time?
Yes, that's correct.
So work full-time, did an evening MBA, got back in touch with your old buddy here, Robert, went to the New Ventures class, then ended up going to the Austin Technology Incubator. And
Well, certainly. When Daniel won the Moo Corp competition, at the time, it's now Texas Venture Labs investment competition.
there was no
Trademark.
Corp before.
But it's Moo Corp, you automatically got into ATI, which is great because it's a nice litmus test for them. And so far, they've had a very good track record with winners of that business plan competition. So I encourage you all to get into it and at least try. You will learn so much. But let me take a step back. All right. So Austin Technology Incubator has been around since 1988, right?
89, I launched
89,
it. 88, I worked on it.
Okay. And so, and I've got, we've got a long history, with ATI, okay, with Furnace, with Datical, but also me personally, because I was a undergrad intern there back in the day, 95, and just I think that's where I fell in love with entrepreneurship. But one thing I heard about you from one of these ATI events, when you got started, when you were just the lone voice in the wilderness at the incubator, that there was a company that was about to sign a deal with IBM. And they had a very crappy office. And this was back in the day when you had to have a nice office, and you had to have people actually came and signed stuff, all right? And you had a contact who had furniture store or commercial furniture vendor and brought them in. They set up this wonderful office, and then the IBM guys came in. It's like, oh, wow, it's a great office. I'm so happy we're doing business with this company, and wow, this is wonderful. The reason why I bring it up is, one, because I want people to understand what ATI has meant to us, to the greater Austin community, to just the nation, the world. Okay, because everybody models themselves on this. But two, every time we have surrounded ourselves with somebody to help us, we've made certain it's somebody that's had that kind of drive, that kind of hustle that you showed with those, that little baby company. And I just wanted to point that out, that those are the kind of folks that you want. It's a bunch of people are going to say stuff, but it's very important to have folks like Laura around you that are going to work, that are going to suck it up and make it happen.
Well, thank you.
So,
very nice.
come on, let's
I think he's trying to
go
turn
on,
the
come on.
interview around. Thank you. You're very nice. But you know, the people you have around you when you start these companies are really important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very rare to have two, co-founders in your all's case create a business once. That's hard enough. But then to go back and be willing to do it again and still be friends and
Well, we ran out of money.
you run out.
Yeah.
No,
You have really nice houses.
No,
I mean, that's
yeah. I think you
that
did
costs
very
a
well.
lot,
I think
you know?
did very well. But
let's not forget that there was also we're talking about bringing people in. That Daniel and I were very green at Furnace. We didn't know what was going on. Okay, great. It was a really good idea. It was a wonderful market, good timing, but we had a real serious leadership vacuum, and that's when we brought in our CEO, Larry Warnock. Now, Larry, introduction from Rob Adams.
Yep.
See the commonality here? Hang out with Laura, hang out with Rob. But we met Larry, and we always told him that he was our second choice, just to keep him always guessing. All right. And that we're very disappointed that he was an Aggie, but we saw past that. But bringing him in was wonderful for the company because he provides some leadership. I remember when it was just the three of us and a couple of employees, and I remember he would talk to Daniel in MBA speak, and then he would talk to me in techie speak, and I was like, wow, this guy gets it. He knows what's up. And he really helped us out with driving the company forward and building out the team, raising money. Dude wrote a check as an investor. I mean, how do you think that conversation with his wife went? Like, good news, honey, I got a job. How much is it? Well, we had to write a check for $50K. Congratulations. But it's, I think that, you also have to surround yourself with folks that are hungry. And Larry never had a CEO job. Like, he was chief marketing officer of Vignette. He's all these VP of marketing at, like...
Documentum and all kinds of
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, like amazing places. And he was the marketing guy. But he never was CEO. So you bring somebody like that into your company, and they're hungry. And he had a great background, could certainly do the job, but nobody else was going to take a chance, except for a couple of chuckleheads like us. And so we bring this guy in, and he works his ass off, and he makes it happen. He put us where we needed to be, and man, it's all about hiring. Just finding the right people. So, I mean, yeah, it's a nice story. The Daniel Roberts show, and I certainly like that. But we had a lot of help.
so,
And
Daniel, do you like the Daniel Roberts show?
It's, you get a little tired of him.
yeah,
Robert and I work extremely well together, and we certainly are complementary.
Right.
I'm very data-driven. I'm very methodical about things. Robert's very intuitive and instinctive. Robert has fantastic taste, if you can conceptualize that for a market need.
Yeah.
And I am very good at being very deliberate and in a lot of ways kind of bring a lot of structure to those things. So in that way, we're very complementary. But certainly, you surround yourself all the time with people that are really good at things that you're terrible at. I mean, that's really one of the keys, whether you're in entrepreneurism or life or corporate or whatever you want to do, right? And so we have continued to surround ourselves with those people. And it's not just, I don't look at Robert and tell him he completes me by any stretch of imagination. And so we have not really. We have had great success, for example, with Larry Warnock, bringing him on as CEO. I learned a tremendous amount from him. Robert learned a tremendous amount from him. He learned a tremendous amount, going through that process. Yep. We have a fantastic VP of sales. We have a fantastic VP of engineering. These are all people that continue to drive, Datical forward, to this day. We have great employees at Furnace. Our first employee at Furnace, Pete Pickerel, we brought on as our third founder for Datical. Wow. He's someone that has a tremendous creativity and a tremendous sense customers trust him. That's who you want parachuting, into the data center in the dead of night and just bringing calm to everything. And I think that one of the, we tried to develop almost a reverse cult of personality, where it's really not about us. It's really not about what I bring to the table or what Robert brings to the table, but really who can we attract to share the table with us. And ultimately, that's been the key to whatever success we've had, is just convincing people to come along for the ride.
Early on in a company, and especially, again, your first one, I'm going to come to Datical shortly, but especially the first time you're doing this, you have no track record of doing it before, even though you both had phenomenal backgrounds in being with, a number of great startup companies, Dr. Coop, Isocron, Nuasis, 360 Commerce. I mean, these were both in these kind of companies were in your background. They were named entrepreneurship companies. But first time around, how do you convince these people to join you?
Well, you get a lot of no's.
You get a lot of no's. I mean, you keep going. And
Yeah,
It's a numbers game.
Yeah, the number one trait of successful entrepreneurs is persistence.
Yeah.
It's not intelligence. God knows it's not talent. I didn't mean to look at you as I said.
No, I understand. It's just in a general, sense.
But you just don't give up. And at Furnace there were 4 distinct days that I remember looking at Robert and saying, this is going to be the last day of the company. Unless this decision goes this way, unless this customer decides to buy, unless this investor decides to put more money in, I don't see how it's going to happen.
Right.
But at least we showed up for that day.
Right.
And at least we waited till the end of the day to make the decision. And there were a couple of times where it didn't happen, but I was wrong about it being the last day.
Yeah.
So, but you just keep moving and you just keep going. One of the things I like to say to a lot of would-be entrepreneurs, that if you're doing it just for money, it's a bad idea. Just from an expected value basis, it's really, you should invest in your 401k and work for a company for 30 years. Far more likely to be comfortable monetarily doing that. But if there's something else that you'd like to do, if there's something that you would like to have as part of your career that's not monetarily based, you can do a lot of that in entrepreneurism.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to be the product. Like, for example, at Furnace, it was about building the software company we always wanted to work at. That's what it was for us. I mean, the product was great, the market was great. We love our customers and all that. But we wanted to do a software company the way that was important to us. We had been through all the startups and the baton death marches, and you work 400-hour months, and you do all that stuff. But we was, let's hire really talented people. Let's work 40 hours a week. Let's be really productive. Let's be methodical about things. Let's not make everything an emergency and burn everything down. And it ended up being, I remember the story. Patty Sock, who's our CFO, who I love to death, and like one of her great characteristics is she could get me to do anything that she wanted, and convinced me it was, and I could convince myself it was my idea.
She had 3 boys.
Yeah.
She raised 3 boys, so she was perfect for us.
I was just her little puppet, and I'm still so happy about it.
Yeah.
But I remember when Furnace was getting bought, I went into her office and I said, Patty, I'm a little sad. She's like, well, why? Well, and that, of course, alarmed her. And she's like, well, tell me why you're sad. Well, I feel like I'm losing a kid. Mm-hmm. And she said, no, Daniel, you're not losing a kid. Your kid's going to college. Your kid's leaving the nest. Kid's going to a bigger world. Kid's going to go off and do great things. And I said, really? Do you think so? She said, yeah. And I need you to sign these papers.
Yes. Yeah, Patty's great. I've known her for years. She's just phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, she's wonderful. I mean, that vision right there, that there's something bigger. That's really what you pitch. You pitch it to yourself. You pitch it to your employees. You call it leadership, evangelism, whatever. Sales, sales, sales. All right? What's it going to take to put you in this new car today? All right? I know it might sound smarmy, but sales is really about what you have and matching it up with somebody else's need. Okay, so it's not a bad thing. All right, but the one thing that I always said to customers and employees was that we don't sell software. We sell piano recitals, little league games, date night with your significant other, all the stuff you want to do. But you can't because you're stuck at the data center dealing with this bullshit. So just sign here and buy this, or sign this damn offer letter, and we can get on and make some stuff happen here. It's really about painting a vision. and talking about the value of that thing is not inherent. It's what you are going to be able to do when you have that thing. It's the Roomba, the little vacuum cleaner robot. It's not because it's cool and it freaks your cat out. Okay, that is neat. All right. The reason why it's cool is because you never have to vacuum again. And what are all those great things you can do when you're not vacuuming? All right, it's BS. But that's kind of, as a consumer, that's what you think. And that's how you need to pitch things. Sell the vision.
Who was your first customer and how did you get them?
It was IBM.
IBM. IBM's a tough cookie.
Yes,
IBM
real
was
tough.
our first customer. We sold a group within IBM our software that helped them manage another piece of IBM software.
Oh, wow.
So that was a good proof point. Anyway, it was a tiny little transaction. It was like $2,500 or something like that.
And why was it $2,500?
Because that's what they could sign for.
Yes, the manager that liked it, that was their signature authority.
I got $2,500. She's like, strangely enough, this cost $2,500.
And now we could say that our first customer is IBM.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, we were never allowed to say that, but we said, told it to everybody.
Everybody.
There's
worst kept secret.
There's a certain freedom about being judgment-proof.
Right.
Sue me. Great. Get in line.
What you going to get?
Yeah.
Right.
I got some IKEA furniture.
Right.
Help yourself.
And you leverage that? You leverage that first customer into many, many more.
The whole furnace story is leverage. All right. We got into ATI because Daniel won moot court.
And Aaron DeFosse was there at the time, who I worked at Aaron's company, Isocron.
Oh, right.
So before there was another ATI company. God, it's like it's all circular.
Small
but anyway,
town.
so after we won the competition, and we had already applied for ATI before that, he comes up to me and shakes my hand. He says, "We would have let you in anyway." I was like, "No, you wouldn't. That wasn't going to happen." But he was fantastic, and ATI was fantastic, and we got great advice from one of our advisors there. That it was once we got that one customer, which was actually originally it was Webify, if you remember Webify.
Yes, very well. Manoj.
Right. So we were working with Webify, and then they got bought by IBM, and then they introduced us to a group in IBM that ended up being our first customer. So that's kind of like how we triangulated that. But the advice that we got was like pick one customer and delight them. And then once you've delighted them, go on to the next one. But don't go on to the next one until you've delighted that customer.
And once you delighted that customer, how did you think about product evolution?
Yeah.
Or new products, or
so that's a very telling question, because one of the problems with Furnace is there really wasn't an and then. Okay. So the analogy that we use is that Furnace was if you're going to think about the car being the complete package, Furnace was a cup holder.
Right.
We were a great cup holder. We were a really cool cup holder. We conceptualized cup holding more, in a different way than anybody else ever had. But we were never going to be a drivetrain, a chassis, a steering wheel, the stereo, none of that.
Right.
And so I remember I gave the last fundraising pitch we gave the day before we closed the transaction with BMC, because you never stop raising money, right? And I remember, because you got to draw this big picture, all this stuff. I remember, man, I hope we don't have to do this, because I don't know how we're going to do it. I won't say who I pitched that to, but anyway. But with Datical, that certainly informed a lot of what we did. And Datical is very much different, where it is designed at the beginning to be a multi-product company, where we have the ability to start one place and then organically grow in many different directions.
Well, and kids, remember, when you think, growing the product line, think valuation, right? That's, we're not doing this we are doing this to save the world, not really. It increases the value, and we learned that at Furnace. You got to always have something.
So it sounds like every time you've gone through either a individual personal experience or jointly together in a prior company, there's something else you've learned about the entrepreneurial process. Absolutely. You're now providing or addressing in this company. So tell us more about the company you guys have more recently started. So
Datical, of course, anything cool that we ever thought of, Robert thought of. Like, I think I had names, and Robert's like, that's terrible.
But you had Omni Globodyne.
Omni Globodyne.
yes, a faceless corporation
Yes,
that
yes.
does adhesives and industrial products and defense contracts.
That was,
Doesn't that sound cool?
Right.
Right.
but so you thought of the name, I think you were in the bathtub or something like
Well,
that.
I was doing something, yeah. But yeah, it was, you know, look,
Oh.
guys, the domain was available. Come on, let's not mythologize this
That's
shit.
right.
You know, this is just like, damn, that's available.
Well, that's
I
how
got
we-
it.
That's how we came up with the name with Furnace.
Right.
Furnace was originally, so Robert wanted to be the Michael Eisner of punk rock, right?
There's still
So-
time.
So
Maybe later.
He was like in the early 2000s. When was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Early 2000s. He got tired of technology, dropped out, joined the Warped Tour, was like a catering assistant on the Warped Tour.
Yes.
But by the end of the summer, he parlayed that in a spot on a tour of a band called Flogging Molly. It's an Irish punk band. And by the end of their first tour, he was their tour manager. So he took them through Europe a couple of times, took them through North America.
Didn't lose one of them.
Didn't lose one.
They
of
all
them.
came
And then,
back.
As he puts it, he got tired of being the most mature person on the bus.
Scary.
That
Low
is
bar.
scary.
And dropped out. And so you came back to town, and you were going to start a record company.
Mm-hmm.
And so did a little who is search and found out that everything good was taken. So he replaced all the F's with PH's and tried it again.
Right.
And this name Furnace came up. And so we bought it. It was originally going to be Furnace Records.
Yeah. If you go to the Internet Wayback Machine, go check it out.
Wow.
And it was signed my first band, and then they broke up the next week. I said, you know, maybe I should try something else. You know.
So when we were starting the company, I was like, what are we going to call it? And he said, I got the domain. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
And the same thing with Datical. I mean, what we, you know, with this company though, it's again automation, concentrating on the database. Basically, you know, companies solve this problem by throwing bodies at it, updating their database. It's crucial. The one difference though is that, you know, what was the percentage of companies that had a Java application server
Oh, it was like 40%.
versus
35%.
who's got a database? Everybody. And they've got multiple flavors, and it's a huge market. And oh, look, there's this open source project that kind of sort of solves this problem. It's not all there. Maybe we could work on that and leverage that and enhance it. And that's what we've done.
So when we went to go fundraise, what we pitched was not, so if you want to juxtapose Furnace and Datical, with Furnace we were pitching, okay, here's the problem, here's how we solve it. What we pitched with Datical is, here's an example of a problem. An example is something that kind of solves it, and we're going to go commercialize that, and then we're going to go do it again and again and again and again. So we didn't pitch the cup holder, we pitched the car, but we said we're going to start with the cup holder.
Right.
And that made a lot of difference.
And how did you come up with this idea? Did you observe it from
No,
customers at Furnace?
They
Did you
told
just
us.
sit around?
Our
Yeah.
customers that we sold Furnace to, they said, wow, this is great. Do you do it for the database? Huh, maybe I
Right.
should write this down.
And,
And
then,
then when
and then we went through and we did a formalized market validation study. We talked to 100 Fortune 2000, Fortune 500 companies. We interviewed them. We collected the data. So started kind of with Robert's gut. This is a good idea. But then we went back and validated it.
Yeah, do your homework.
So it sounds like, also from what you're describing, Robert's out there evangelizing, talking to the customers, listening to the customers and what they want. Daniel, you're back at the shop going, does this make sense? Let's actually formalize it. Let's
Right.
prove.
Let's test
Let's
that.
take the hypothesis and test it.
Right.
And when you both come together and agree,
Right.
you kind of move forward.
Yeah, I spent years terrified that Robert had faked our test data for Furnace.
Right.
That he had just I don't want to ask these people these questions. 7.
Right.
I was terrified of that for the longest time. So
But
terrified.
obviously that was not true.
Well, if it was,
the
I don't wanna
customers
know.
really
I don't
liked
want
it.
to know. If it,
Right.
but,
If it was, we got lucky.
But yeah,
No.
that's how we work, and we work
Yeah.
well together. Robert's certainly the kind of the creative force, and I'm a lot more of the discipline, methodical.
There's another company that's also been very successful with 2 founders called Message One that sold itself much the opposites in the founders, but using each other's strengths. So let's move forward with the company today. You're now building the car by analogy, not the cup holder,
Right.
even though you're building it a piece at a time.
Right.
And perhaps I should use the analogy of you're building the Tesla. You're not just building any car.
Right.
So as you're building this, are you taking different steps in the evolution of this company? Being a multi-product, a multi...
Absolutely. So we do it from the beginning with that in mind.
Yeah.
And so, it's as much kind of understanding that when you're doing things, doing them with the anticipation you're going to do them again. So when you're doing, the first product prototypes, it's thinking about, okay, let's figure out how we're going to be doing product prototypes, because we're going to do it again and again and again. And getting good at our craft, which is building, identifying markets, building the products that match those markets, and making them, building with the idea that there are going to be other products that need to be synergistic with them.
Right.
So we're much more deliberate about things. We are much more tough on ourselves. So just because it's a good idea or we think it could be a good standalone, that's not good enough. It's also got to fit in to the whole portfolio.
Right.
And eventually what we'd like to do, by way of analogy, is kind of be like a cross between Red Hat and CA.
Yep.
Like that's really what we like to do with this company. So it's a bigger idea. It's got more legs. It's going to take more time. And so I believe very firmly that the mistakes that you make early on are the ones that haunt you forever. Okay. And so we're trying to avoid as many of those as we can.
But you're also putting systems in so that when you scale this business, that those processes are in place. You're not coming... So often with companies, especially entrepreneurial companies, the first product or two is great, and then the entrepreneurs realize, we don't know how to scale this because we did it by the seat of our pants and we have no processes, and if that guy leaves, well, no one else knows how to do that.
Exactly. We at the very beginning, we realized that what's valuable about the business, especially as we're casting it to investors and the greater community, is that what's valuable about it is that we understand how to do this. And our proof points is that we've done it. Right. What's valuable is not that we've done it. What's valuable is that we can do it again and again. Right. But ultimately, through due diligence or just the proof of the market, we're going to have to demonstrate that that's actually the case.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we do, everything we do actually, is the idea of having be part of a system.
So let's talk a little bit about how you funded the first company, how you're funding this company, in terms of your plan or what you've done to date that you feel comfortable
sharing. The first one was a mess.
I think we plasma, like we did everything.
Yeah, it's there was a time when because it was just so disjointed raising money, that Daniel and I were trading off basically a mortgage payment. Whoever was closest to getting their house foreclosed on, that's the person that got paid. This is scary, dark stuff. So again, it's not for faint of heart. You have got to know that it's, well, you always say this. You say it's going to take longer and you're going to need more money every single time. Yeah. So just remember that. We, had good fortune of certainly with Rob, with a little bit of seed money from a Capco, and then a gentleman by the name of John Heim. Came in, and he has a very set model with enterprise software, so it was perfect for us. And he was the guy that sat across.
Oh, John. I mean, you know John.
I know
John. John is one of the great taste. That guy can pick winners.
Yes.
I mean, not to pat myself on the back or anything, but like that guy's really,
no,
really
absolutely.
Good.
And for those
really
who
good.
don't know, John Heim is a very active angel investor. He was early at Sun. He was early at Tivoli. Yeah. And he's gone on to pick many other.
Many. And I always remember, because we had like 2 moths and a nickel. And we gave him the pitch, and like he's like, okay, I like it. It's like, but here's the deal. And he told us his deal. And like the MBA in me was like, it's outrageous. And
Right.
like,
I will not stand for this.
But then I looked at him, and he's like, I'll write you a check. I was like, and he held up his hands. He's like, they're blue. Like that was it. Like I was like, okay. And John's been great, and John's now an angel investor in Datical as well.
That's
so. We tried to keep him around as close as we could. Yeah, we raised venture debt, we raised angel, we raised venture capital from a couple of different firms with Furnace, and it was always, I don't know why you end up doing it. It's always like you're a week away from going out of money, when you do it, and just always ends up that case. But with Furnace, it's a lot harder also at the time. Like raising money 2006, 2007, 2008 was very difficult.
It was a really
brutal
tough time. I mean, companies went out of business who'd been around, who were established, who couldn't raise money with existing customer bases. And here you were out raising money for a new company.
Yeah.
Well, we got very lucky. All right, so that we raised first Series A round with Mercury, and that was with sales model 2.
We had several failed sales models.
Yeah, 2 failed, one finally worked. Okay, so we messed up. All right, and we needed to go back to the well, and Mercury was bridging us. Just make it happen, make it happen. Daniel and Larry closed a round with S3, which was great. It was right before fall of '08. And for a little history lesson, the end of the world happened. Sequoia put out a PowerPoint, leaked their PowerPoint with gravestones, valuation.
I must have had that PowerPoint forwarded to me 92 times.
Yes.
So we had, but we had closed it right before then. All right, so we'd gotten our money. And we actually, things were going well because we moved to an enterprise sales model. And things were starting to look really good for us. We then started closing our enterprise customers. And the reason why is because on the way up, they just threw bodies at the problem. I just hire people. And things were looking bad. And they had to cut costs on headcount and also cut costs by pushing people online. So more applications. What's the quickest thing to run on to build an app for if you're a Fortune 500 company? It's Java application server. It's cheap. It's easy. It works. Okay. So they started Fortune 500 corporate America started canning folks, and along the way we had a little conversation with some folks in Arkansas, a little mom and pop retailer, little small company. And
they with W?
Yeah.
The W small company.
Yeah, little tiny guys. Great folks. Met on their porch with all their hound dogs, kicked it with the hillbillies.
It is odd to have a very technical conversation with someone who sounds like they should not be able to type.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it was weird. I dialed up my Texas. But it's because we got that money in the door, we were able to tackle this stuff.
Right.
And it turned out that they desperately needed this because their HR people had gone to the home office and said, look, we're going to save money this year by not talking to people. They said, great, build a website. And the IT guys, like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? So they bought our software to deploy the website and make things happen. Long story short, things were very bad then.
Right.
And we were doing well. All right, we were basically selling software to folks that needed it. They were.
We let you fire people.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And these buyers were cutting back on their budgets everywhere. They the IT spend in the Fortune 1000 went to from $6 billion down to a fraction of that.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds big numbers, but for a new company,
it was tough, but it really made us be very crisp on our messaging and be laser focused. And one of the reasons why we commanded a very good multiple at the acquisition is that we were competing against IBM for the Walmart business.
Right.
And IBM eventually just decided to give their solution away for free.
Right.
And Walmart decided to buy ours for 7 figures instead.
Wow.
So that was the compelling point that demonstrated to the market that our solution really was that much better.
That's phenomenal. How has the financing in these two companies affected your presence with your customers? Is it giving you credibility when they know you're a private company emerging, capitalized in some way? Has it hindered you?
I found it's like for example, anyone who starts out a conversation talking to you about how much money they have, they probably don't have that much money, right? But anyone who just takes it for granted, it's like, guys, we're going to be fine. We're fine. You want to talk to our investors? You can do that anytime you want. And then you just make it a non-issue and you move on.
Right.
And nobody ever asks another question. And so I think it's as much the peace of mind in our mind that makes us very confident as we deal with our customers as anything that we really have to demonstrate to them.
That's great.
And keep in mind, these, although large numbers to us, to corporate America, this is a rounding error. This is not a big deal. 7 figures. Wow, that's big. Walmart, come on. Think they really care about that? You know, I mean, they do.
Right.
That's why they beat us down. I mean, the thing about Walmart is that they're going to drive a hard bargain, all right? And we got this PO from them June 32nd. And
that's what we call June 32nd.
Right.
You really needed to close Q2.
Right.
And we counted it, found a PO. It worked out. But we had negotiated, 18% on the support, 18% of the license, annual support. Okay, so the million you pay for that, then plus support. They had just changed it to 16%. Didn't ask us, didn't do anything. There it is, just changed it. And Patty, our CFO, asked, well, do you want us to send it back? And she was ready. She was angry. Hell no. Just take it. We're good. Let's hit the bar.
Right.
You know, the thing is that sometimes when you're small guys, they'll just do that stuff. And but realize that if this problem that you're solving, if you have done your market validation, if you've done your homework, and this is such an intense problem for corporate America or whomever, it doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
They will talk to you. It doesn't matter. You could be offensive and just really, they don't like you. But you know what? They'll suck it up and deal with you because you can solve this horrible, horrible problem for them.
And even large companies recognize that real innovation is not coming out of other large companies. Like innovation happens in small companies. And that's just the reality, especially within the IT space.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to open the floor to questions. So if you have a question, could you please go to one of the microphones? And please go there anytime because we're going to keep going here. But so you're solving real problems. You've got the capital. You're building the great team. You're building a company to scale this time, not a single product, multiple product, big message.
Right.
A big company has to be multiple products. Where do you think this company is going to take you both? Where are you?
Robert wants to buy a baseball team.
A baseball team.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No, it is. It is. Hear me out.
It's going to be
You'll do Donkey's Milk, and I'm going to bring the Padres to San Antonio. We're going to change the name to Los Norteños. And it's just going to be huge. Change the colors. Oh, man. It's going to be Mexico's team. I'm telling you. So that's where we're going.
Well, perhaps
you mean before that? Oh, before the check clears.
Before the check clears.
Oh, wow.
I mean, are you going to build this company, until you decide you've done as much as you want to do?
I think you build a company, and every company you build it to be an ongoing concern, or excuse me, a going concern. And so you try to do the right things to make it a sustainable business. I think the minute you stop doing that is when things go haywire. And you've seen it. You know, the company that thinks they're about to get acquired at any moment, and then loses, attention on sales that quarter, and then misses the quarter, and then has to go raise money, but it's a down round, and like everything just kind of crumbles at feet.
It's
like it
spirals out of control.
Yeah, I mean you can't ever get distracted by that stuff because it's like you're a kid waiting for Christmas to come. Yeah. And then you forget to do your homework.
And when Santa doesn't bring a gift,
I know,
it's kind of tough.
It's devastating.
Remember, but the day before the acquisition, Daniel was pitching the Series B at Furnace. Okay, had a backup because if it doesn't go through, you don't want to have that conversation with your SO.
Yes.
It's like good news, bad news.
Well, and even so, day one of BMC acquiring Furnace, we had rented a room here in this building. This building is brand new, and we rented a room. Bob Beecham was on the phone, welcoming everybody. We had our new backpacks. We had pens.
Nice.
It was awesome. And Larry comes and sits down next to me, and he writes this note on this pad of paper, and he says, "Hey, we're having a problem with calculating net working capital. The deal might not close." And so I take the pen back from him, and I stopped shaking for a while, but then I wrote back, it's going to be really embarrassing to ask everybody to get back their backpacks.
Right.
So we need to try to figure this out. We did,
right.
But nothing's ever done until the funds are wired and it's done. It's not real until you get the money.
And shareholders get their money that comes out.
Yeah.
We have a question.
I do. I actually have two. One, I've been really enjoying watching you two guys play off each other. It's really interesting. I have my own startup. I have a partner, and you guys are great. I'll leave it at that. What I'm really curious about is you two seem very different. I'm curious about how your two different management styles work together at the company. That's my first question. My second question is you referred to when you're doing a startup, think about valuation. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. So I'll tell them your management style and you can tell them yours.
Oh, goody. This is going to be fun. So I'm glad you're going first.
So Robert's management style, number one, I remember when we started Datical, he's like, this is all I want. I never want to manage anybody. So Robert's really good at that. But no, Robert's management style is to make someone feel very included and say, hey, how you doing? Somebody cares about you. Like, we're here for you. We want you to be happy. We want you to be successful. We want to make sure you've got everything that you need. Because we really hire really high performers. My management's, or no, you're going to talk about mine.
Oh, yeah.
What was the second question?
Valuation.
Valuation.
Yeah. Here, let me go quick, and then you
Okay.
can talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
the valuation. All right, so look, let me tell you a story about at Furnace. I was taking the devs out to lunch every Friday.
Oh, Jesus.
Because it was an opportunity for us to get together, these technical employees who worked so
I'm a
hard.
much nicer person this story's going to paint.
He is. But it's like I'm going to take you guys out to lunch, and we are going to share with each other what did somebody else do. What was that business case? Who got caught being awesome? There's some CEO who did that. So I did that. All right, tell me something good about what somebody else did. All right, and technical folks love doing that. All right. Also, you keep track. If there's some person who's never saying nice stuff, you need to get rid of them. So one of our sales rep, who's now our VP of sales, we love this guy. All right, he's done wonderful things for us. Went up to Daniel and said, "Hey, dude, what's up? Robert's showing all this love to the devs. When does sales get some love?" And Daniel said to him, "Well, Brian, do you name the cows before you take them to the slaughterhouse?"
Ooh.
And Brian said, "I got some calls to make. I'll be right back." Look, we love this guy, but it's sales. It's rough. For the sales guys. It's close it. Where's it at? Dev, it's like, care and feeding, with Kobe beef, feed them beer and fermented soybeans. I love doing that. But sometimes you've got to be a hard guy with the data, and that's why I'm so grateful to have Daniel around, because that's what he does.
Before we get to the valuation question, so do you have employees trying to play one of you off against the other, like two parents? It's like, I can't get the right answer from him, so I'm going to go over to that.
Well, I can answer that very quickly. No. And the reason why is because Daniel's in charge. We made it very clear that he's CEO and that he gets final say. And there's been some times where we've disagreed at stuff, and he's made a call, and that's that. And you've got to be mature enough to understand that. The other reason why we don't have that is because we have a rule: no punks, no jerks.
Okay.
So no punks. I don't want anybody fresh out of school that'll learn on my dime. They got to know their stuff, so we got a lot of gray hair at our office, and we love it. No jerks, because we spend a lot of time with them. We need them to be nice people.
But isn't this a little bit contrary to the fact that you guys have had jobs and you come straight out of school, quote, more mature, not kind of...
I would have never hired me.
No. No, we sat around. There was that we were hanging outside, and things were really great at Furnace, and you said, there is no way we could get a job here right now.
Yeah.
Because you kept hiring better and better people, and that's what you do.
Right.
A's hire A's, B's hire C's,
Right.
and we're always looking for people better than us.
Great.
If there's a better CTO, let's hire him. Great, I'll go wash dishes and keep my stock vest in, and sounds good.
If there's a better CEO, bring it.
Right.
Like that's
Which is
fine.
what you've done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second question was valuation.
Right. So I found that not most of life, but a lot of life is the context in which we tell our stories. And so when you're going to pitch to offer something up for value, it's much about how you frame that conversation as anything else. So if I tell you about what we're doing now, you're going to value what it is we're doing now. But if I tell you about it in the context of everything that we're going to do in the future and how that builds into a greater story, and that is also internally consistent with the market and with the other kind of macroeconomic support points, then you can really build in someone's mind why this can be valuable, why it's actionable, and what's the pathway to do that. If you looked at how humans even visually represent things, we exist in multiple spaces and time. So if you look at two people throwing a ball, very simple representation of this. Humans actually perceive both the beginning point, the end point, and where the ball is all at the same time, right? That's how come we can run to where the ball is going to be. Well, that's how you tell your story. You talk about where you came from, what you're doing right now, and where this is going to be in the future within the context of everything around it.
So you're talking about long-term scalability plan very early.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're raising professional money. One of the things I like to say, and correct me if this is contrary to what your opinion is, but a lot of the venture capitalists that I deal with, I say that they're all CPU, no RAM.
Right.
So great big minds, you have them for very tiny time slices. So you got to tell a story that makes sense, that makes them not have to make a lot of time on these things. So telling the complete story where they can judge very quickly is this something interested in or not.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Because that's the most important commodity. It's not the money, it's the
Right.
time. And then if you capture their attention, it's where you take it, where they work with you and you with them to take it from that point forward.
Absolutely.
I think, was there another question coming? Yeah, please.
Greed is also a good thing too, playing off that.
That works with capital sources. So,
Yes, gentlemen, two questions. I tend to be more of a visionary as well, and I think as a visionary, we tend to need to surround ourselves with people that can work out the plan and help us get to where we want to get. So earlier, I heard you make a comment about you wanted to make a career in being experts in things that you didn't necessarily know about. Could you elaborate on that, about how one goes about doing
Sure.
that? Because personally, I myself have a background in economics, but I have a grand plan for, let's say, carbon footprinting or environmentalism. And secondly, how did you get in front of the Fortune 500 companies? Was it just picking up a phone book, or was it LinkedIn? Thank you.
Yeah.
So you take the latter, I'll take the former.
Sure, for sure.
The main thing for me is to become an expert at something that there really isn't a whole lot to know about. So new things that are very cutting edge, things that a lot of people are asking questions of, and you really just go and do your research and have the confidence, arrogance, hubris, however you want to call it, to throw yourself out there and have an opinion about it. You start in a very private forum, so if you're desperately wrong, like you find that out pretty quickly. But the great thing about it is that in a vacuum, what anybody's saying starts to take the shape of reality. And so just having an opinion that is relatively informed, that you some kind of credibility about, and throwing yourself out there and saying it, can really, to a surprising extent, shape the world around us. One of the things to also keep in mind is that industries and the world in general is a very small place. So if you look at the software industry, I mean, it's billions and billions of dollars, but sometimes I think there's only like 10 people in it. You run into the same people over and over again. And so some people ask, well, why did you guys start this company? What was it about you that was special or different than the rest of the world? Well, if you start to do the math, there's only so many people that are even in this industry in total. There's a very small part of them that are entrepreneurial. A lot of those go into other companies. Very even smaller number have our particular background that would make us aware of this problem. And you come down to it, and it's like, it was probably only going to be Robert and I. We were probably the only people who are really going to do this. And that's actually why that the world is littered with problems waiting to be solved. It's not that these problems aren't worth solving. It's there really just hasn't been the right combination of the people with the expertise, the inclination, the chutzpah to go do it. I mean, that's why, personally, one of the things that I'm going to get on my soapbox for I'll be very quick. One of the things that really troubles me about entrepreneurialism in this country right now is some of the greatest minds that I know are really trying to figure out ways to get people to look at cat pictures a little bit longer than they're doing right now, right? That's the big problem they're trying to solve. And our world is littered with really hard problems that people will exchange a lot of money for other people to go solve.
A lot of money.
But we're in such a rush to get to it that none of us stop and learn a craft, learn a space, learn an industry, learn what's wrong with it before we actually go tackle it. We're on this thing that everybody's got to start a company by the time they're 20. It's like, I didn't know any problem we're solving at the time I was 20.
Right.
Like it took me till I was 30 to even figure out, let's go do something. Don't rob yourself of the experience of really knowing an industry. Anyway, that's
And I endorse that. Actually, the highest percentage of entrepreneurs are 35 to 45, but at the moment in time in the last year, the over 50 entrepreneurs have been increasing at double the rate of any other category, whether it's straight out of school or later. So
Market forces.
Market forces, these things change over time. Before I come to your question, the second question, though, was about how do you get
Leads.
the first customer?
Yeah, how do you do it? So, okay, there's two ways to do it. Okay, how do we get in touch with a Fortune 500? So, one, we're going to assume that you've got your messaging down, you're crisp, you understand the problem space, you understand what they want. All right, what are the key differentiators? All right, with your product, and also what are some hallmarks of these firms that make them want to buy your product? All right. With Datical, we know that it is they want to move to agile software development, but they are not quite there. And they understand that the database is going to be a challenge for them. Done. We've got it. Also, you tell me that you've got 3 or more different database vendors. Oh, you're all mine. All right. So I know those are the folks I need to go after. There's all sorts of places you can go to get lists, to call, to understand the org chart. You know that don't talk to this role, talk to that role. You figure that out. But this is how we got the Walmart deal. Bruce Reed, ACE account manager, just joined us from his previous company over at Datical. He called Walmart. He got a name, and he called them at dark 30. All right, so why do you call executives super early in the morning, like it's 7? They're not going to be there. Yes, they are, because they're slammed. They have got meetings all day, and the only time they have to do their work is in the morning. Guess who doesn't show up until 9? Their admin. They pick up the phone. So Bruce called, talked to a woman, and she said, you know, that is a problem we have. We are having challenges with updating our Java application server. Interesting. But you need to talk to Greg. Hey, Greg, pick up the phone. And so she just forwarded the phone over to Greg, and they talked. And what was the light speed? It was like 3 months.
Yeah.
And we got a deal, all right? Remember, I'm assuming that you've got your messaging down, all right? You know what you're doing, all right? But getting the leads when the problem is intense is not really that difficult. So if you're having problems, probably the messaging. So think about that.
That's key. Last question for tonight.
Yes. Was your exit strategy for Furnace to get acquired, and what is your exit strategy for your current company?
Yeah, we always believed that Furnace was going to be an acquisition. It didn't really have the legs to go and be kind of a public company or generate those kind of revenues. Datical's much different. It does have the legs to go do that. But the way that I think any company should be orchestrated is that you stage valuation jumps with new capital coming in. And so at any time that valuation is jumping because of proof points, customers, revenue, what have you, you then have the option, do I then take an exit at that time, or do I take on more money to go and take the company to the next step? It's very much, private company valuation is very much step function. It's not really kind of a curvilinear relationship. Sometimes they're very steep steps. Sometimes those steps go down. But it's very much kind of event-driven like that.
Okay.
And I'd like to add to that. And if you think you are going to be acquired, and it might even be a customer or it might be a competitor, do you start building a relationship with those people? Do you ignore them and just wait till they dial you one day?
So,
No, you scare the shit out of them. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, greed and fear. Look, it's remember, we're selling software, right? And nobody else is. All right. So crap. All right. So you've got this middle manager. All right. He's a VP. He's a director. He works for one of the big 4 companies. His company got kicked out of Walmart by these guys in Austin. All right. He's worrying about his mortgage, his wife, his kids, all this other stuff. His world's about to come crashing down. And, it turns out that we already have a partnership with these guys. And you call them up and you say, we've already been working it. Like, man, I'm sorry we didn't see you in there. It would have been great to have your solution in there. I think we really could have done something if we worked a little closer together. I mean, it's just,
But it's a fine line because you can never, the minute you're for sale, you cut your price at least in half.
Yep.
And so I think companies get bought, they don't get sold.
Yes.
You keep saying no until you say yes.
Yes.
You like the first offer for Furnace by BMC was 1/8. No, 1/8. Is that right?
Yeah, a little less. Yeah.
A little bit less than 1/8 of the eventual price that we sold for, just because we kept saying no.
Right.
And that
So
Rob
they-
Adams said that. You create a market by saying no. So I think what your question, though, is digging at, though, is how do you get there? How do you get to the big payday and all this stuff? And I would say you work backwards.
Right.
You look and figure out what is going to make you happy. What do you want out of this? And then you talk to your co-founder, and you make sure you're aligned. And then you figure out, well, if we want to sell the company, we have to get X to get me Y. So we need to have this much revenue. To get that much revenue, I need this many account managers. To get that many account managers, I have to have this much money. To get that much money, I have to have a product. To get a product, I have to have so many engineers, but I need money for that. And then I need an idea. And then eventually you will keep working your way back until you are standing right there.
But when you have investors, are they going to have more of a say than you are as far
Of course.
as an acquisition? Or
Yeah, and and they should.
Yeah,
And you should listen.
This is not a world where real hard power exists. It's all about what you can convince other people you're willing to do. And as soon as you take money, I don't care what it is, you give up control.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, this has been a phenomenal dialogue tonight. You've made me happy for being here, using your terminology. Thank you very much. I think we're very proud to call both these guys Longhorns and serially successful entrepreneurial Longhorns at that. And I want you to join me in thanking them for spending their time and sharing their wisdom with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.